George Santos might have been kicked out of Congress, but don't think for a minute that he's going quietly into that good night. The embattled former congressman has decided to go on the offensive against his former Republican colleagues, threatening to go directly to the Office of Congressional Ethics with all kinds of alleged violations. Per Mediaite, Santos responded to fellow New York Republican Nicole Malliotakis' vote to expel him by tweeting, "Let's talk about hypocrisy. Can someone ask Nicole when did she become a savant in stock trading? The signature bank trades she did reeks of insider trading, much like Paul Pelosi's every trade. Nicole is in it for herself. Just look at her record, and it speaks for itself. Nicole Malliotakis is a dirty, dishonorable swamp creature selling the American people down a river for her own benefit. The difference between you and I is that I don't live in denial. I'm a proud gay man, and I'm not afraid to say it."
Following Santos's congressional departure, calls for more accountability began making their way across Capitol Hill. Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman appeared on The View and said that Senator Menendez of New Jersey needed to step down over corruption charges. Let's watch.
Well, it's like, I'm not surprised, but to me, I think the more important picture is that we have a colleague in the Senate that actually did much more sinister and serious kinds of things. Senator Menendez, he needs to go. And if you are going to expel Santos, how can you allow to somebody like Menendez to remain in the Senate? And, Santos's kind of lies were almost, funny. And he landed on the moon and that kind of stuff. Whereas, I think, Menendez, I think, is really a senator for Egypt, not New Jersey.
Based Fetterman, he got some pushback from some of the View people there. It's very interesting, the line he's taking these days.
Yeah, I did see some left people critiquing the idea that he would be a critic of people who were corrupt, Menendez was more of a direct pay-for-play kind of a corruption.
Yeah, the Menendez allegations are very serious.
Gold bars stuffed into jackets and things like that. But, of course, he is under a lot of fire right now from the left for not being open to any kind of arguments about a ceasefire in Israel or in Gaza, or having any kind of abatement of the onslaught for humanitarian reasons. He has taken a very hard line of standing with Israel. There was an incident where he kind of was allegedly disrespectful to a service member who was advocating that he change his mind on that. So I saw some pushback on that.
All I have to say is Republicans might take that Pennsylvania Senate seat after all.
You think so?
If he switches he sounds very much in keeping with Republican stuff lately. I don't know what's going on. I have no insight into this.
No, he's not. I don't think there's any chance that he would leave the Democratic Party. And it would be interesting for Republicans to have to revise their commitment to the idea that he was unfit to serve following his stroke.
You don't think they would do that in about 5 seconds?
No, they're going to have to negotiate it. And I do think it's interesting. Some people were saying, well, he's sounding a lot better now, almost as a criticism. But this is what folks were saying, that in the immediate aftermath of a stroke, you are at your worst, and that he was expected to rebound, and he sounds
he does sound better.
I'm better than he used to.
I'm very glad for him.
And this is very different. This is what I was arguing at the time. I have no interest in defending Fetterman on a policy basis, but in terms of just kind of disability advocacy, he is not like Joe Biden insofar as that Joe Biden seems to be struggling with age-related cognitive decline, whereas he wasn't cognitively impaired. He had a difficulty speaking and articulating himself. And so there's an argument that even if you can't talk, if you can still make the kind of judgment calls that you need in leadership, then it's fine for you to stay in leadership.
Yeah, I mean, it's a talking and communicating role as well. You have to ask questions of people at hearings, but that's neither here nor there. I'm glad to see him doing better. It seems like his recovery is progressing, and that's great. The point is interesting. I think it's one we've kind of nodded at a couple times on the show that, George Santos is, yes, going down for these very colorful accusations. And, some of them are serious in their own way, the taking of money and, that's sort of the dog charity or whatever. I can't even remember the litany of things.
Oh, I can remind you.
But they're not, but it's not quite the same as the level
trading
of corruption that is commonplace in D.C., for sure. So I think that's a valid point, one that doesn't really acquit him or get him in a better, he's been expelled. So
Yeah. I mean, look, just as a refresher, Santos is most recently accused of using campaign money for personal travel and for Botox treatment.
Yeah.
He allegedly lied to collect unemployment benefits, collecting more allegedly than $24,000 in unemployment benefits. He allegedly committed identity theft. He was accused of committing identity fraud and credit card theft. Prosecutors say he made unauthorized donations using a campaign donor's credit card information and stole family identities, lying to Congress, reimbursed himself for loans he didn't make, lied about where he went to high school and college, and that he worked on Wall Street, and that he is Jewish. All of those things.
Yeah.
That's.
I mean, a lot of accusations. I mean, some of those things he's admitted to. So it's not just accusations. Not everything you're charged with or accused of is necessarily a sound and solid criminal matter. They've expelled. I mean, he did admit to some of them. So I think. I think there's an unusual amount of, there's a wide variety of allegations of fraud, some of which he has confessed to, and given that, was it appropriate to expel him even before these matters have been, they're still pending, it seems fine to do so.
Bowen Yang did a turn as George Santos on SNL over the weekend, and it's pretty funny, and his response to the accusation that he had used public money for Botox was, "It's fillers, you idiots." Not Botox. It's a good bit. That's obviously not the news. But I take your point, Robby, that in the grand scheme of people who've actually been expelled from Congress, the majority were slave-owning Confederacy supporters that were ousted after the Civil War. And I think of the 5 House members that have been expelled in history, he's now the 6th. 2 were Confederacy, 3 were Confederacy supporters, and the other 2 were convicted of felonies. Henry C. Burnett of Kentucky was expelled in 1855 for disloyalty to the Union. John B. Clark was another disloyalty to the Union. John W. Reed of Missouri was expelled. That was another Union one. Then the 4th and 5th were orchestrating schemes to stuff the ballot boxes on behalf of Democratic candidates in several Pennsylvania elections. It's interesting.
I mean, there have also been a couple people.
And there's a bribery, racketeering, tax evasion guy.
There's been people who have, facing this outcome, have just resigned.
Sure.
So for similar kinds of fraud and financial issues. So
yeah, look, this is not the last we're going to hear of George Santos. Some people are concerned
we're happy to interview him on the show if he would like to come. He's doing interviews.
Some people are concerned that the kind of humor around his particular case is going to cause him to be kind of normalized in a way that arguably he shouldn't be, that we're going to see him on Dancing with the Stars. A kind of fun, famous internet reporter named Z-Way apparently has already brokered a deal to interview George Santos. She has a notable kind of adversarial and funny interview style, so that should make for interesting TV. Are we going to create another Donald Trump by using this guy as an entertainer, and is it going to be a path for him to get back into Congress someday?
Him so cruelly.
Right. Right, all right.
Will they rally to him, the MAGA base? I don't know. No, he has he doesn't have, he was only in Congress for this short period of time and didn't have time to, I think, attract a record. I mean, he's been such a colorful character in the media, but I don't know that MAGA people who would go to the mat to defend Trump would go to the mat to defend some of these other characters. I don't think they feel that way about George Santos because I don't think he had really enough time to develop a history of even to the same extent like your Marjorie Taylor Greenes and your Lauren Boeberts and those sorts of people. They held up the whole process to extort more promises out of leadership that they would actually do what conservative primary voters want. I don't know that George Santos really had the time or made the effort to assemble such a record.
I think that's right.
I don't think he's going to be mourned over, but I don't know. More Rising right after this.